Destroyed buildings, cracked roads, more than 100 dead. And that's just in Myanmar. These are the consequences of a powerful earthquake with a magnitude of 7.0, which was felt in several countries of Southeast Asia at once. The epicenter was near Mandalay, Myanmar's second-largest city. As you can see from this footage, the city was badly damaged. In the capital, Yangon, hundreds of wounded are waiting for help at a local hospital. I was afraid that the building would collapse, and I tried to get out of the house, but a wooden cabinet fell on me and I injured my head and leg. The wall of our house was made of stone slabs, and it collapsed. My child was lying on the floor, and the slab fell on her. A state of emergency has been declared in some regions of the country. The military junta, which is in power in Myanmar, has appealed to the international community for help in dealing with the aftermath of the earthquake, and these are shots from neighboring Thailand. In the country's capital, Bangkok, an unfinished high-rise building collapsed as a result of the earthquake. At least 3 people have died, and rescuers are still clearing the rubble. According to official data, there may be more than 80 people underneath. Their fate is still unknown. There is also destruction in other parts of Bangkok. These shots show rescuers trying to free a woman and child from under the rubble. The tremors were felt throughout the city, especially in high-rise buildings. Residents were evacuated from their homes and offices and spent several hours on the street. I just got out of bed and realized that the floor was moving somewhere. The walls, too. And it felt like you're on a ship, especially when you're on the 35th floor. The impressions were not pleasant. When we were going down, we saw fallen windows somewhere, glass lying around, water pouring out of the pool. We have a pool on the roof. Almost all the houses here do. And so, when we were sitting in the yard, experiencing the main shocks and waiting for the aftershocks, a neighbor told me that he was in the pool at that time, and he wouldn't have gotten out if another person hadn't pulled him out. Thai Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra assures that the buildings in the city are earthquake-resistant, and the danger has passed. Buildings in Bangkok are built in compliance with all standards. Even if the earthquake had been stronger, they still would have been able to withstand it. Checks have shown that all buildings can be re-entered, but for many Bangkok residents, the earthquake came as a shock. This hasn't happened here for a long time. I was on the 2nd floor. The dogs and I were rocking, as if we were in some kind of ship. The situation felt like a shock to people. They weren't prepared. In general, Bangkok is not a seismically active area, and all the people are in shock. I was walking here, and my neighbor asked how I was feeling. I decided to ask him too. He is 45 years old, and he said that this was the first earthquake in his life. He has lived in Bangkok all his life. A state of emergency has also been declared in Bangkok. Some metro lines and trains have suspended operations. All flights within the country have been temporarily cancelled. The death toll from the earthquake will continue to rise, and it will take months to eliminate the consequences. Footage from Bangkok, as if from the apocalypse. According to the BLMBEG agency, this is the largest earthquake in the world in recent years. The epicenter of the disaster was Myanmar. Due to the elements, a bridge more than 1 kilometer long over the Irrawaddy River collapsed. According to the New York Times, there are hundreds of victims. There are not enough doctors for everyone. The Myanmar authorities declared a state of emergency and asked for help. As far as I know, the epicenter of the earthquake was in Saga Ing. I think there may be even more victims there than in Naypyidaw Do. That's why we declared a state of emergency. We want the international community to provide humanitarian aid as soon as possible. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the first tremor in Myanmar reached more than 7 on the Richter scale. It was followed by a second tremor, which measured 6. The earthquake in Myanmar was so strong that it was felt in neighboring Bangladesh, Laos, China, India, and Thailand. Bangkok felt the strongest consequences. Dozens of high-rise buildings were damaged in the Thai capital due to strong tremors, and a 30-story building under construction collapsed. Workers were trapped under the rubble. The Thai authorities declared a state of emergency in Bangkok. Residents and visitors to the city ran out into the streets. A frightening picture unfolded before their eyes. Water was pouring from swimming pools off the roofs of high-rise buildings. At the same time, a real tsunami was unfolding on the rooftops of the skyscrapers themselves. This is footage from one of these buildings. All the furniture was shaking during the tremors. In the first 24 hours since the earthquake in Myanmar, the number of dead has exceeded 1,500 people, and the number of injured has exceeded 2,500. The vast majority are in Myanmar's second most populous city, Mandalay, where the earthquake's epicenter was, and the number of victims may still increase as the rubble is cleared away. The aftermath is complicated by the inaccessibility of the worst-hit areas due to collapsed bridges, non-working internet and power outages, as well as a general shortage of people and equipment. Survivors say rescuers often had to dig them out with their bare hands. This is so terrible. All the pagodas and temples, with all the stairs in our village, are in ruins. We lost everything. Such a nightmare. I have never seen anything like this before in my life. Not only residential buildings, but also iconic landmarks of Myanmar, such as the Royal Palace in Mandalay and the Buddhist pagoda in Sinbhume, have been destroyed or seriously damaged. On Saturday morning, seismologists recorded another aftershock, this time with a magnitude of 5.1, and with an epicenter just a couple of kilometers from the Myanmar capital, Naypyidaw. Neighboring Thailand is also recovering from the earthquake. Several people died there, dozens went missing, and public transport in the capital, as well as airports across the country, were paralyzed. However, today, Saturday, life has practically returned to normal, local residents say. The metro has been operating since 5 in the morning today. All shops and cafes are open. The city center is full of tourists. There are no signs of what happened. Well, maybe just some pieces of plaster lying around somewhere, and not very big ones, just cosmetic damage. That is, if you don't know what happened yesterday, then you probably wouldn't guess. But I haven't unpacked my emergency backpack yet, just in case. Laughs. Because I live on the 28th floor. Telephone, money, documents, a set of spare underwear, and so on. This is all worth keeping ready. In Myanmar, the consequences of the earthquake will not be eliminated so quickly. After 4 years of civil war, the country lacks transport, medical, and fire infrastructure, and tens of thousands of people still live in temporary refugee camps. The junta, which has held power in the country since 2021, has asked the international community for humanitarian aid for the first time. We would welcome assistance from any country, any foreign organization, and anyone within Myanmar. India and China have already sent aid to Myanmar. Next in line is help from Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, and South Korea. Russia sent 2 emergencies ministry planes with rescue equipment and teams of dog handlers, psychologists, and anesthesiologists on board. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres announced that the UN would allocate $5 million to victims. U.S. President Donald Trump also promised to help, but so far without specifics.